weekly dose of politics,
snark, and heavy metal music.
All rise, motherfucker.
for your hosts, Brandon
And Matt.
Hide the rum.
Performer hasn't been provided with a script. As a matter of fact, I have been permitted to choose my own words and discuss my own ideas regarding the choice that we face in the next few weeks. I have spent most of my life as a Democrat. I recently have seen fit to follow another course.
The defense policy of the United States is based on a simple premise. The United States does not start fights. We will never be an aggressor.
As for the peace that we would preserve, I wonder who among us would like to approach the wife or mother whose husband or son has died in South Vietnam and ask them if they think this is a peace that should be maintained indefinitely. There can be no real peace while one American is dying someplace in the world for the rest of us. We're at war with the most dangerous enemy that has ever faced mankind in his long climb from the swamp to the stars. And it's been said if we lose that war, and in so doing lose this way of freedom of ours, history will record with the greatest astonishment that those who had the most to lose did the least to prevent its happening. Well, I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers.
Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. You and I must protect and preserve freedom here, or it will not be passed on to our children, and it will disappear everywhere in the world.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. And this idea that government is beholden to the people, that it has no other source of power except the sovereign people, is still the newest and the most unique idea in all the long history of man's relation to man. This is the issue of this election. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves. Regardless of their sincerity, their humanitarian motives, those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. They knew that governments don't control things. A government can't control the economy without controlling people. And they know when a government sets out to do that, it must use force and coercion to achieve its purpose.
We, the people. We, the people, tell the government what to do. It doesn't tell us. We, the people, are the driver. The government is the car. Almost all the world's constitutions are documents in which governments tell the people what their privileges are. Our Constitution is a document in which we, the people, tell the government what it is allowed to do.
This administration in Washington has betrayed the working men and women of this country.
I hope we have once again reminded people that man is not free unless government is limited. There's a clear cause and effect here that is as neat and predictable as a law of physics. As government expands, liberty contracts.
A recession is when your neighbor loses his job. A depression is when you lose yours. And recovery is when President of the United States loses his.
Someday, when the time comes to deliver the final ultimatum, our surrender will be voluntary, because by that time, we will have been weakened from within spiritually, morally, and economically. The martyrs of history were not fools. Where then is the road to peace? Well, it's a simple answer after all. You and I have a rendezvous with destiny. We'll preserve for our children this, the last best hope of man on earth, or we'll sentence them to take the last step into 1,000 years of darkness.
Well, hello everybody, and welcome to the machine. I am Brandon.
And I'm Matt.
He shows up every once in a while. I mean,
You know, the funny thing is I'll be gone next week to Fan Expo.
he's like herpes.
And you're going to have to help me when I come back on the 17th. Because when I come here, I'll be getting off of a 16-hour shift. I'm going to be dead. I'm probably going to look like a zombie.
Well, we can always contact the government. Apparently, you can get cocaine at the White House. So we'll help you out with that. You know, get you some booger sugar and you'll be good. Well, tonight's going to be interesting. We got a few things we're going to talk about. We got some audio bites. We got some news that we need to give out to you. And of course, tonight I told a few people that we will be having a special guest at 8 p.m. Central.
Oh,
Yes.
excellent.
We're just not telling you who it is until he shows up. Which I've actually should probably give him the call-in number.
That would be a good idea.
Yeah, I should do that about now because I'll forget if I don't. Shit. Apparently I can't. My thumb's not working. All right. So, I guess you were out melting in the sun. Did you enjoy that wonderful weather we were having?
Kind of, sort of. At least I got to sleep in air conditioning.
How's that camping?
Well,
You're supposed to
the
suffer.
camp's not for me, it's for the Cubs.
You're supposed to suffer. Yeah.
It was rough, though, because, like, after, like, they'd go to bed, we'd have to prepare for the next morning. Like,
Yeah.
we weren't getting to bed till, like, maybe midnight, turn around, getting back up at, like, 5:30 in the morning, trying to rush and get stuff ready to go. And
Right.
I'll learn my lesson that next time I'll take the day after I get back off, because that was rough trying to go back to work.
Oh, I bet. How many pounds of water weight you think you lost?
Oh, quite a bit.
Did they at least have any like cool down shelters or anything like that? Or
We had a couple of those the fans with the misters.
yeah.
We had those set up in a few places. Saturday we took them to the pool for like 4 hours. And we had a few water games for them like Friday. So
What's going on? Good to see you. Yeah, believe it or not, I ended up out in it too. So I knew. I mean, I was literally just watching the water weight drop off. I'm like, by the time I got home that night, I felt like I felt like a prune. Like I felt my skin shrinking. I'm like, wow, when you can take it and just go like that and just stays. I was like, oh, that's not good. And the worst part was I was drinking as much water as I possibly could. Just constantly.
yeah, I was so sick of drinking water by the end of the weekend.
Oh, I guarantee it. Good deal, Josh. Glad to hear it. Yeah, it was definitely miserable. One night I was like, I think it was like the second night, of the heat wave, and I left the shop. I was like, oh, it's 7:30. I was like, I'm gonna go to the garden across the street. It's in the shade right now, and everything. I walked outside. I was like, oh, it's not so bad. I go in there. I make it past like 2 plants because I'm looking for the tomato plants. I'm going through them. I made it to like the second plant, and I reached up and went like this with my hat, and it was like, I'm like, oh, yeah, that's not good. Okay, we're going home now, and yeah, I ended up. I mean, I was wearing jeans. I was wearing shorts, but I was wearing jean shorts, and my feet were sloshing in my shoes, and my jean shorts were a different color. It was just that muggy and that miserable. I didn't, you wouldn't have thought so, but it didn't look like it.
Yeah, the kids did pretty good as far as drinking water. We only had one that ended up sick because she wasn't drinking enough. Even her parent couldn't get her to drink enough. And then after she got sick and went into we had a place where they go in for like the nurse's station, air conditioned.
Yeah.
She got to sit in there for a little bit and got to feeling better. And let's say she started drinking water after that.
Mm-hmm. Well, that was one of the things that I was talking about with some of the events that I've went to, like wearing full gear, and you know what kind of gear I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Completely loaded down. Everybody else is taking their stuff off, and they're like, man, it's so hot. I got to get this off. And I'm like, look at him. I was like, what's your problem? I'm just sitting there wearing it. There was a secret behind that because I always hydrate the day before,
mm-hmm.
and then I maintain the day of.
Yeah.
So while everybody else was suffering, I had my Camelback full of ice. I was like, yeah, baby, I'm good. Well, we actually do need to get into some stuff. I mean, I'm going to, actually, before we even get started, I'm going to be gone this weekend. Our Liberty Fest is this weekend. It'll be up in Moline, Illinois this time. So if anybody wants to join us and needs the address or whatever else like that up there in Moline, Northern Illinois, you can give me a shout and I'll get the information to you. It's always a good time. Trust me. It's never a dull moment, especially when you have me there. I somehow end up being the comedian of the group. And it's just like the show. If I'm talking, if I'm doing a speech or anything else like that, it's just like the show. We're talking with you, not at you. It's crowd participation. I actually get agitated when somebody doesn't answer when I point at them. I'm like, no, I was like, because I'm focusing on you. You need to talk to me. Otherwise, I realize I'm in a crowd full of people. I don't like it. So last year our winter was 3 days. It was 70. That's awesome. See, I'm okay with it being warm all year, just not oppressively. See, when we talk about heat, it's not a dry heat. No, it's a very moisture-filled heat, which is the reason why it's oppressive and uncomfortable as hell, because your body cannot cool down because of how much moisture is already in the air.
Yeah.
So if it I know it's dumb, but if it sounds like it's 90 degrees, like we say, oh, it's 90 degrees. Oh, that's not so bad. When we say it's 90 degrees here, we mean 90 degrees with 96% humidity.
Yeah. You feel like you're breathing underwater.
Yeah. Yep. And that's exactly what it feels like, too. I mean, it gets miserable. But we're going to be, well, you better believe I do. Pick that shit up like burlap and just start slapping the powder on it. I'm young enough that my skin still has elasticity, so if I let go, it goes back. But anyhow, all right, let's see. I didn't even get you half the shit that we got. I'm gonna check our audio bites and see which ones we got. See if we want to start with those first or if we want to go later. Oh well, we know right now that that there's some more judicial nominations happening, right? Biden's got more judicial nominations. Did you see the slaughter that was this one particular nominee?
Mm-mm.
Like, we know that the majority of the people that they like to try and nominate are usually the bottom of the barrel to begin with,
right?
Or they're so hyper partisan that they should be just lockstep with the the straight arm out people. You know what I mean? But this is insane, and Senator Kennedy just drops a shit bomb on this woman. It's It's like, well, what, 6 minutes long, but it's worth every second of it.
Senator Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Congratulations to all of the nominees. Judge Mahalchek, you remember a case called Yentzer v. Potter County?
I have a recollection that I presided over that case. I don't know if I recall the details of it.
Okay.
Mhm.
You were
Sure she isn't.
reversed, is that right?
I believe that was a case that I issued. I was a magistrate judge in that role and in the referral role on it, and it was reviewed by the district court, yes.
And you were reversed, right?
I don't recall in that case if the report and the recommendation was adopted in full or not adopted
Well,
in full, but yes.
the higher court said you incorrectly analyzed qualified immunity and you incorrectly cited the 11th Amendment. Do you remember a case called Myers v. Clinton County Correctional Facility?
I recall that case as well.
And you were reversed in that case too, weren't you?
I believe it was adopted in part, yes.
Do you remember a case called Dennis v. Sheridan?
Yes, I believe I recall that case as well.
And you were reversed in that case too?
I believe that R&R was not adopted in full, correct, yes.
Okay, but you were reversed.
It was not adopted, yes,
Is that
by
the
the
same
district
thing
court.
as being reversed?
It's a different, the district court declined to adopt the report and
The higher
recommendation
court
in
said
full.
you were wrong.
The district court disagreed with my report, yes.
Yeah, okay. Do you remember a case called Shania v. East Pennsboro?
Yeah, the Shanias are pro se plaintiffs who have brought a number of cases, so I'm
Right,
not sure which
right.
one you're referring to,
I'm-
but yes.
I'm just curious, you were reversed in that case too, were you not?
In part, yes.
Okay. Do you remember a case called Spanier v. Libby?
Yes, I do.
The president of Pennsylvania State University was convicted of covering up child sex abuse crimes.
Listen to this.
And you let him go on a habeas corpus petition. And the Third Circuit reversed you, is that right?
I directed that a new trial should be held with a different jury instruction, and the Third Circuit disagreed and found that he had received the due process he was entitled to, yes.
Well, the Third Circuit said you failed to cite, analyze, or properly apply the relevant case law. You were reversed, right?
The Third Circuit reversed my decision, yes.
Okay. Do you remember a case called Hassel v. Centric Bank?
I vaguely recall that case, yes, Senator.
You were reversed, weren't you?
I believe the district court failed to decline to adopt my recommendation, yes.
Do you remember a case called Ramsey v. Amtrak?
Jesus.
Oh, it just keeps
Yes, I do.
going.
And the higher court reversed you in that case too, didn't they?
The district court concluded that I was correct in finding that the petitioner did not pay a filing fee, and where I had recommended that the case be dismissed, he granted the petitioner 30 days to correct that.
So you were reversed in part,
Yes.
okay?
She
Remember
dropped it
case
because of a
called
filing fee.
Bracken v. Fulton County?
Yes, I do.
You were reversed in that case too, weren't you?
I believe that was in part, yes.
You remember a case called Bird v. Britton?
I do.
And were you reversed in that case?
In part, yes.
Okay. You remember whoa, I'm sorry. You remember
Thank you,
a case
Mr.
called
Kennedy.
Allen v. Lackawanna County Board of Commissioners?
Does she?
I believe I recall that case, Senator.
And you
I'm not
were
sure.
reversed in that case too, weren't you?
I believe I was reversed in part in that case, yes.
You remember a case called Daniels v. Capital One Bank?
Yes.
And I believe you were reversed in that case too?
Oh,
I believe it was, yes, I believe so.
Do you remember a case called Downey v. Pennsylvania Department of Corrections?
Yes, I recall
this
that
just
case.
keeps going.
And were you reversed in that case?
Yes, I believe I was.
Remember a case called Rejean v. Wetzel?
I I vaguely recall that case, yes, sir.
And were you reversed by a higher court there too?
I believe that our report and recommendation was not adopted in full.
Okay, I don't have time to finish this list. I mean, it's longer than King Kong's arm here. You've been reversed a lot. In fact,
she
you've
has.
been nominated before, haven't you?
No, I have not, sir.
She don't even remember.
Your nomination was talked about, and Senator Toomey refused to send in a blue slip for you, did he not?
I'm not sure exactly what happened. I know that this process has been ongoing for 2 years.
Yeah, but you know that Senator Toomey refused to even, thought you were so unqualified that he refused to even allow the Judiciary Committee to consider you. Isn't that correct?
I do not know what Senator Toomey's reasons were. So
You've never talked to Senator Toomey about it?
I never discussed it with Senator
And
Toomey.
you don't
no.
know anything about a blue slip being withheld on you?
I do not know.
You're under oath.
I am under oath, and I know I did not speak with Senator Toomey about his reasons for not.
Was Senator Toomey's concern that you were unqualified?
Again, Senator, I did not speak with Senator Toomey or his staff about his reasons for not supporting me.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Holy shit. Did you hear that? Is there a single case that she's presided over that was successful?
I was waiting for him at some point to go, do you remember all your cases? And she goes, yes. Do you remember you were reversed in all of them?
I was waiting for it, yeah. But this is the kind of thing we've come to expect from the Progressive Democrat Party. They want to put in the people that are so damn dumb that they can be molded and used for what they want them to be. Mm-hmm. They do not want them to know anything about the Constitution. They definitely don't want them to know anything about the rule of law. How many times have we seen that now? Seriously.
Yeah.
And yet when Amy Coney Barrett came up, she answered everything perfectly, had no reversals, and at one point, one of the Democrats says, "Well, I see you're keeping notes or whatever else like that, or you brought notes with you and stuff like that." What did she do? She held up a blank notepad.
Yeah.
But this is what they give us. This is what they want in our judiciary system. This is just one of the nominees too. And by the way, I kept this one, even though it was 6 minutes long. I was like, I'm letting it go. I was going to cut it, have a couple reversals and let it go. No, I was like, no, fuck it. They need to hear the whole thing because this was unbelievable. And the rest of the time when, during her confirmation hearing or, whatever, holy shit, they were just tearing her up. His was the best one though. I mean, his was the list. I mean, he just kept dumping on her. I just could not believe while I was listening to it that this was supposed to be a legitimate person to go into office.
Yeah.
But then again, I sat there and listened to the majority of the Mayorkas ones too. Mr. Homeland Security. He should have asked her, is there any cases that did not get reversed? Exactly. That's what I was thinking the whole time I was listening to this. And like I said, it wasn't just Kennedy. I listened to around a dozen other ones, including Democrats talking to her, and it's pretty bad when even the ones that are wanting so desperately to put her in office couldn't defend the majority of what she said. I mean, there was just no way to do it. They could not do it. And I'm like, this is getting good. This poor woman is a disaster for a judge. I mean, she reminds me of some of the judges around here. I mean, we do have some judges here that I question how they even made the bar, let alone got into the judge, But that's besides the point. But this is federal level, and that's how bad she is. I think at some point Kennedy could have literally just asked her, was there any cases that actually made it alive?
That would have been the easiest, route.
Because he showed, you can find the list online. I didn't go and grab it, but he showed the list, and I mean it was like page after page after page after page after page reversal. I know a circuit, not an Illinois circuit judge, but a circuit judge out of state, and he's had 2 reversals his entire career. like 25 years, and he presides over one of the biggest areas, St. Louis County. And I can imagine the thoughts that were going through his head as he was watching this, because he was, and going, "Holy shit, lady! Why are you even there? What are you doing? How'd you even make it as a judge?" This is the kind of thing that we've come to expect, though. They don't want anybody in that has any intelligence. They either go after the newest thing, like, well, we got to have, a fat transgender guy as a health secretary, stuff like that. This is the kind of thing that we've come to expect from them. They want these false milestones. They want this like virtue signaling type shit. They don't want anybody that would actually be right for the job. Am I wrong about that? Is it not that any time that in Biden's reign that they wanted to put somebody in office, that they went for a historic milestone of some sort? It wasn't that the person was good enough for the office. It was a milestone. Am I wrong about that?
That's because they're pandering for votes, because they know most of the voters out there aren't intelligent enough to research. They just look at, look at this milestone that the Dems are doing, so we should vote them back in next year.
Well, it's just like the press secretary. The fuzzy-headed fruit bat. Oh, this, I know somebody's gonna be like, well, you said that because you're racist. No, it's because she does have a chip head. It has nothing to do with her race. That's not. Don't be stupid. I know you are, but don't be stupid. But that was the first. That was the milestone. It was because she was the first black lesbian to be. I was like, okay, was she good for the job?
No.
No, she's a walking disaster.
Yeah, and she does what she's told. They tell her what she needs to say, and then she runs out and says it.
Right. I honestly think it's insulting. Mm-hmm. And I'm not talking about insulting to us. I'm talking about insulting to her, because there's no way that they put her in there because of she would be right for the job or good for the job. It was just because they wanted to get that milestone to make themselves look good.
Look what we did.
I honestly feel bad for her because of what they've done to her. Just like a lot of these nominees of any kind that they've been putting in, because it has nothing to do with their track record or how good they are at their job. It's just because of who they are and what they look like, and that's ridiculous. I don't like that. I don't give a shit what you look like, or what your sexual orientation is, or what name you call God, as long as you do your job and do it well. I'm not looking for the government to make another milestone. Well, here, we got to get this, transatlantic, black, Asian with Mexican roots, crazy, wadded, transgender, whatever the fuck, all the shit that you can push together in one and be like, here, this is who we got. No, that's not what I want. I don't give a shit who they are, what their sexual orientation is, nothing like that. Are they good for the job?
Yeah. What are their qualifications? And them being the first, they kind of set the standard for those of the future. And we all know that they can't meet those standards, so it kind of ruins it for everybody else.
Well, it's like the school system, so we lower the standards.
Yeah.
What? Not everybody are on the same playing field? Well, we should lower the standards until everybody's on the same playing field. That's the reason why we got a whole school full of Riris. And I don't mean that because I hold those people, the actual, the mentally challenges, near and dear to my heart. I'm talking about the fact that they are not taught anything above what, where they should be. They're not even taught where they should be, let alone above what they should be. Like they want to get rid of all those classes, all the special classes and everything else like that. Mm-hmm. And just so there's no more special kids because they don't want the other kids to get their feelings hurt.
Yeah.
That's stupid. If the kid is special and knows really well about like math or like history or anything like that, there should be accelerated classes for that child. because let them excel, let them show what they can do. Maybe they'll be the next person to work for NASA and build a new rocket, or maybe build the proper electric car that you guys got a hard on for, or something like that. Instead, you want to dumb everybody down. There's no special kids anymore. Let's not get into sports because of the participation trophies. Well, they tried so hard, so here's a participation trophy. Okay, this one pissed his pants and ran the wrong way to fucking second base. I don't think he's going to be, he doesn't deserve a trophy for fucking up. He deserves a trophy for when he does well, because that's what trophies were for. I mean, we had to fight and do hard work for our trophies. Now it's, you put on a jersey, you played the game, you played 2 minutes out of the entire season. Here's a trophy for you.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but you're giving the kids false hope. But again, going back to this nominee, it just reminds me that I keep saying that that there's a two-tier justice system, and they said we'll play that clip later. We'll go to break and then play that clip. But there is a two-tier justice system. The problem is it's not the one that they claim it is. What it is you're either one of them or you're one of us. And if you're one of us, you don't get the same treatment. Yeah. In fact, it's quite the opposite. They want to label you anything but what you are, and make sure that you get as much time as they can possibly throw at you, even if you didn't do anything. Just for speaking, sometimes. Just for using, your voice. You don't have to say anything major. Not at all. You can say, I appreciate this country. I stand for the flag. I'm a Christian. I own a firearm. And all of a sudden, you're an extremist. It's like, motherfucker, I go to work just like everybody else. How am I extreme for saying that I appreciate the opportunities afforded to me by this country? I'm just wondering. But that being said, we're going to play a new song and we're going to take a break. We'll be right back.
My people of this country, and we're under attack. They banning us, they cancel us for speaking the facts. If you man enough, come stand with us, take USA back. And every time we pull up, all you're gonna see is American flags. American flags. American flags. And every time we pull up, all you're gonna see is American flags. I ain't never gonna pretend that I give a damn. Anybody who's offended, come get it, we throwing hands. Anybody not trying to make America great again, you a punk, you a clown, better know where I stand. I'm the white boy with the middle fingers in the air, dog. We don't give a what. 100 white boys gonna hold me down anywhere, dog. We think that you suck. My patriots the craziest, they ain't afraid of breaking fists on faces. If you really wanna taste of this, no safety tip, just aim the stick and spray the clip. I pray you miss, cause if you don't, they gon' go wacko. Automatic gun smoke like tobacco. Never hit a lady, but it's pretty hard to tell if you're a girl or a they, them, there's these, that, those. I ain't never gonna take a knee for the anthem, smack them. I don't give a damn, can't stand them. Gang full of randoms, fan with a handgun, run up in your mansion, leave it all abandoned. I was raised to be brave, to the grave, United States. We love the country that they've been corrupting, go woke and go broker if you ain't awake. My people of this country, and we're under attack. They banning us, they cancel us for speaking the facts. If you man enough, come stand with us, take USA back. And every time we pull up, all you're gonna see is American flags. American flags. American flags. And every time we pull up, all you're gonna see is American
Got that
flags.
AKA all Draco, leave you stankin', break your ankles. I'm not hearing what you saying, hit the pavement, now you seeing angels. It get dangerous, go against the Patriots, got all the bangers. Take a look inside my closet, you gon' see way more than hangers. Hammers like I do construction, ammo, I'ma shoot at something. Why you think we own these guns so we could just go do some hunting? You must not pay close attention. Government, they want division, only treason if you lose. I guarantee we come out winning, let my flag fly high like eagles. I would die for all my people, you can't change me with procedures. I'm about freedom, you about evil, leave you hanging from the ceiling like chandeliers in cathedrals. Never have the safety on, and when we run out, we just reload.
My people of this country, and we're under attack. They time we pull up, all you're gonna see is American flags. American flags. American flags. And every time we pull up, all you're gonna see is American flags. Every time we pull up, you see stars, you see stripes, you see flags on the cars and the trucks and the bikes. Every time we pull up, we go hard, we outside, we got flags on our arms that are tatted there for life.
Every time we pull up, we don't care if you mad. We cherish this land. The haters can get buried in rags. They set fire to old glory, turning fabric to ash.
But every time we pull up, all you're gonna see is American flags. American flags. American flags. And every time we pull up, all you're gonna see is American flags.
You, sir, are not one of my vassals. Who are you?
I am the machine.
What?
I'm the machine!
Okay.
You are listening to the Machine Radio Show.
Not your daddy's conservative talk radio.
Who the fuck do you think you are?
I'm the machine! Fuck that bitch. This is Tonight you party with us, yes?
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Skate.
And since we're talking about court cases and whatever else like that, I guess we should bring up the Hunter laptop thingy, huh? I believe we have some audio for that. Yep, we do. Okay. You know as well as I do, we don't really appreciate the mainstream media at all. In fact, they are pretty much the patsies of the government. They no longer do their job, which is to report and reflect the time. They do not do that anymore. But occasionally they have a moment. And in this one, we have some some information on the Hunter Biden laptop. So let's go ahead and get into that.
So it looks like the Biden administration blew up Hunter's laptop like a bag of Coke. And how much money are we talking about here?
The approximate total transfers from the Romania company would have been $3.1 million to everyone. Total transfers from State Energy HK to Rob Walker was $3 million. The total transfers from Hudson West 3 to everyone was $3.7 million. Burisma paid to everyone involved $6.5 million.
Between 2014 and 2019, this brings the total amount of foreign income streams received to approximately $17 million, correct?
That is correct.
10 members of the Biden family, including grandchildren, raked in $17 million from corrupt foreign nationals. But IRS agents weren't allowed to interview Hunter Biden, any member of the Biden family, and they weren't even allowed to pursue leads that led to Joe Biden.
Nope.
Assistant United States Attorney Leslie Wolf cited the optics of executing a search warrant at President Biden's residence as a deciding factor for not allowing it, even though she agreed that probable cause existed. Prosecutors instructed investigators not to ask about the big guy or dad when conducting interviews.
So IRS agents weren't allowed to interview the Bidens, weren't allowed to pursue evidence leading to Joe Biden, weren't allowed to look in the laptop, weren't allowed to execute search warrants, weren't allowed to charge felonies, weren't allowed to bring cases in Washington and California, and the Biden family was tipped off every time they tried to make a move. That's called obstruction of justice, and Merrick Garland lied under oath to Congress when he said this investigation wasn't obstructed. Merrick Garland should be impeached immediately, and the judge shouldn't sign off on the Hunter Biden plea deal in light of this new testimony.
Which she didn't. I talked about that last week. She did not sign off on it. She said it was too much of a sweetheart deal, and that's not going to happen.
Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna was at the hearing, and she joins us now. What are we doing now to follow up on this? This was explosive testimony, Congresswoman.
Well, as you heard, Chairman Comer also confirmed that not only was the separate investigation conducted by the IRS where they confirmed that roughly $17 million was received by foreign entities. Those foreign entities, Jesse, were China, Ukraine, and Romania. And Comer also went on record to state that we have received bank transactions from Ukraine. So that's going to be the next step in the investigation. But
Yep, and I talked about that. I don't remember if it was last week or week before or something like that. But I talked about that. I said, you know, everybody's blaming Ukraine over this.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you forget that there's other countries that they're doing this to, but the thing is Ukraine was being extorted. They're not buying off the Bidens like people claim. You and I proved without beyond a reasonable doubt that the Bidens were extorting that country.
Yeah.
Like he even said, you know, on national television, if you don't fire that prosecutor, you won't get any money. And the same company, the Burisma Holdings and everything else like that, guess what? The only way that they were able to operate and get certain contracts and do whatever else inside of Ukraine was if they paid the who was it again? The Biden family. It was extortion. And I started looking into Romania, because I knew I'd heard that there was stuff with the Biden family there, and it's almost like 60-40 that they were being extorted too. Jeez. I can't make a definitive answer on that because I don't know enough about the Romanian part to really say anything about it. But from what I've found so far, it's a 60-40 so far, that 60% chance it's all extortion. Not a little bit, and all of it. But then again, they talk about China. China is one of the biggest benefactors of Biden being in office. See, that's what drives me nuts is people don't want to see that, especially the Democratic voters. They do not want to see that the guy that says he's tough on China and tough on Russia and stuff like that is actually being paid very handsomely from both. You forget that he gets money from OPEC Plus. That he gave contracts to OPEC Plus. OPEC Plus is who? Russia and China.
Mm-hmm.
Not to mention his administration is one of the ones that signed off on a lot of the farmland stuff. Because I mean, I wasn't aware it was a thing that, you know, you could legally go to another country and just start buying up half their fucking country. Well, China's done that.
Yeah, I was gonna say China's done that here.
By the way, after a certain percentage or a certain amount, monetary amount, they are actually the federal government is supposed to put a stop to it. Who's running the federal government? Who admitted, you know, on live television that they have made themselves richer when they were vice president? I wonder who that could be. It's not possibly Biden, is it? I mean, I don't remember. Was he vice president under Obama? Because at that time, him and Hillary were kind of lockstep, you know, with extorting money from people. You know, like the Clinton Foundation and Haiti, they built like 3 huts and pocketed millions. They used that money to even do their ugly daughter's wedding. Which, by the way, I mean, if there's anybody to feel sorry for, it's got to be her husband.
Who, Chelsea's husband?
Either that man is legally blind or fully blind, because there's no way in hell. It's like fucking a Yeti. Anyhow, 2 minutes and 17 seconds of this left, though.
Could not agree further that there needs to be, I believe, impeachment of the individuals that are involved in regards to obstructing this investigation, as well as the fact that Hunter Biden's plea deal is nothing more than a sweetheart deal. As you saw, this is not a partisan investigation, and from what we're seeing with the information brought forward, he's also too potentially guilty of violating the Mann Act, which is something that Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene brought up when she proved that Hunter Biden had engaged in not only human trafficking but across state lines.
So tell me about that. If you pay an escort a plane fee to fly halfway across the country to engage in sex, you're not allowed to do that under federal law. Is that right?
That's correct. And as you saw in that testimony, of which the Democrats immediately tried to say that this was revenge porn and had these just egregious claims that were being made when we were presenting evidence. But Representative Green also provided, to my knowledge, from witnessing a ticketed stub from Hunter Biden paying for that escort. And mind you, these are all things that he also was allegedly trying to say was a write-off for his business.
So he's writing off escorts. That's great. Anna Paulina Luna.
He's writing off
pussy.
That's...
Democrats. Have the Democrats said anything worthy of this investigation?
No, in fact, it was actually pretty comical, Jesse, because they kept trying to either bring this back to Trump or they kept trying to bring this back to the issue of race, which I found incredibly ironic
race?
Because, yes, race.
What does race have to do with the Hunter Biden cover-up?
They were saying that Republicans were trying to make this about a two-tier justice system, of which we were robbing black and brown people of the acknowledgement that there's a two-tier justice system against...
Hold up. So there's a two-tier justice system against black and brown people, but not against patriots. There's people literally being imprisoned in federal prison for just saying something.
Yeah.
Not anything bad, not. I mean, I can understand if if you go out there and you're going to say, I'm going to, blow this building up, or I'm going to do this to this person, that's a government official or something like that. Yeah, that's a big fucking problem.
Yeah.
But when you're just saying, I don't agree with what's going on, this is bullshit, and then all of a sudden, next thing you know, you're a felon. You're in prison for 8 months, 1 year, through 2 years, 3 years. Makes sense, doesn't it? So where's the two-tier justice system again? Because it's not the way they think it is. I think we only got 29 seconds left. We might as well let it run.
Black and brown people. So I brought up the point during my questioning that isn't it ironic that, per their definition, Hunter Biden, a privileged white male who's been given special treatment by the Department of Justice, the FBI, and the IRS, of which they're then going to bat for, is the exact same person that we are trying to criminally investigate, and yet they're saying that this is an issue about race.
Yeah, I mean, we had on hip-hop artists who served prison time for doing the exact same thing on their taxes as Hunter. So that doesn't fly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because Hunter Biden's using his white privilege.
Oh, yes. But there is no such thing to the Democrats. Remember, they said the only people that have white privilege are anybody that's not them.
Yeah.
And they nobody is above the law. We heard that over and over again. Nobody is above the law.
Apparently, the Dems are.
Yeah, and what they do when this was about these hearings were about the Biden crime family. Well, what about Trump? That's what they kept doing. What about Trump? What about him? Well, you keep indicting him on stuff, but you have no evidence of anything that he's done. I mean, again, a sitting president, or not sitting president now, but sitting president then, was brought up on charges for having a conversation, one that he's legally allowed to have as president of the United States. And they're trying to charge him, major crimes for saying a phrase that they didn't understand. But, what do we know? Yeah, no, federal prison is definitely no joke, Angie. So what do you guys think about this? And I brought this up not just because of it being the Biden crime family, but because of the double standard. I want to know what you, as the listener, seems to think about this. And while we're waiting for the lull here.
Well, I was going to say, apparently, if you're a Dem, you can get away with anything, You can put shit on your work computer, you can take it home, you can scrub the hard drives and then try to destroy the computer and nothing will happen to you.
Yeah, you can smash items under subpoena with a hammer and not get in any trouble.
Apparently,
federal subpoena at that.
You can bring coke to the White House and forget about it. And
yeah, and the Secret Service, which is an arm of Homeland Security, which is under Alejandro Mayorkas, Secretary Mayorkas. This is the thing that they could find a person, and I'm going to bring up J6 as an example. they can find someone who was completely masked up, has no identifying marks. They can find him, a needle in a haystack. But they can't find out with 750 cameras and all the checkpoints and everything else like that at the White House who owned a fucking 8-ball of coke.
Oh, they know who it was. They were told to keep their mouths shut.
Exactly. Because when they showed the video of them during the 4th of July, when they come up on the balcony and stuff like that, and I'm not talking the edited version because there is a deep fake out there. I'm not going to lie to you. I seen it and I laughed because I could tell it was a deep fake. But if you look at fucking Hunter's face, that's called cocaine face. Have we not talked about this before where that one secretary was standing behind, wasn't it Clinton? She was standing behind Clinton as she was talking at one of the town halls or something like that, and she was fucking coked out of her mind.
I think so.
They do this. They kind of, because they can't control it. They can't control the nerves and and they're like, wow, this is fucking great. She was coked out of her mind. But we're not supposed to know that. And of course, nothing ever happened to her either, and nothing's going to happen to Hunter.
Yeah.
And the worst part is even with the insurmountable amount of evidence, just this massive wad of evidence that actually does show that he's done multiple things wrong. The voters are like, well, Trump's been indicted. He hasn't been indicted. He's not going to be indicted. We're talking about the double standard. There is no double standard. Look, Trump's been indicted. It's like, motherfucker, you've been going after him for 8 years. Like almost 8 years. So, yeah. And he's been, and, my favorite thing was somebody trying to tell me that, he's a criminal because he's been indicted. I'm like, no, it's innocent until proven guilty, not guilty until proven innocent. Well, if he's been indicted, then he had to have enough evidence to do some, that he could be prosecuted for something. Like, no, that's not true at all. There's people that get indicted all the time and walk out because they've been found not guilty by a jury of their peers. Well, he's still a criminal. It's like, how? When's he been convicted? Well, he hasn't. Then how's he criminal? Criminals have been convicted. Some of them wrongly convicted, but I'm just putting that out there. You want to label somebody a criminal, make sure that they're convicted first.
And those are the kind of people that they like to talk to hear themselves speak.
Mm-hmm. Yep. But they don't understand the double standard. They want to do that. They want to talk about the former president, but they don't want to talk about all of you guys are just going after Hunter because of him. Like, I'm not going after nobody. If he did a fucking crime, he did a crime. I said that, very clearly, that if the former president actually did something that they can actually convict him on, skin off my nuts. He did something wrong. Put him in fucking jail.
He's got to pay the piper.
Mm-hmm.
I lost my train of thought.
Oh, shit.
There's a lot of different Dems out there that have done shit. Well, like Hunter. The debacle with the laptop come out, how many years ago? And it kept getting swept under the rug? I mean, come on.
Yeah, and it always does. Is there anything else you want to add before we take a break? Because we do have a special guest coming up here shortly. Oh, he's gotten quiet. I think I broke him.
Oh, I thought you were talking to the listeners.
Oh yeah, you guys too. But I'm talking to you.
Oh. Constitutionalist says Ted Nugent.
Ted Nugent. Yeah. Patriots are the new Jews. Holy shit. Oh!
Damn.
That is savage, dude. Let's see. Yeah, Willie Nelson. Well, there's plenty of them. Okay, yeah, we gotta take a break because we got a special guest coming in. So we'll be right back.
Hey lefties, liberals, and progressives, this is not a safe space. I repeat, this is not a safe space.
If you are one of those squishies who are easily offended, put on your safety pins, pussy hats, and leave this radio station. Or you can free yourself and get educated.
Well, hell yeah! I tried to twist him up, but he wouldn't have it. Hell no. This old boy, wow, we about to have to keep this one.
You are listening to the Machine Radio Show with your hosts, Brandon
and Matt.
Talking about a bunch of hobos with fingers in each other's pooper in a stranger's car with talk radio playing really loud. It's going to be a nice evening.
Okay, shit just got real weird. I think I'm going to need a safe space.
What the? Are those friends of yours, Matt?
Oh, hell no.
Are you sure?
Oh, shut your dumpster and start the show already.
Well, all right, pissy pants. Let's do everything you want to do. And we are back, and we're just waiting for the phone to start ringing. And I'm going to set up some sound bites because we're going to be using them.
So you heard about the synthetic meat?
Yes. Yes, I have.
Guess what got passed?
What?
They can start selling you synthetic meat now.
I'm not eating it.
Remember the whole debacle with the Titan submarine?
Yeah.
While everybody was focused on that, and that's when it passed.
Of course it did.
Yeah. I found that out today. Somebody had sent me something.
Wonderful. Well, it better be labeled because I will not eat it. Fucking synthetic meat. What is wrong with this?
I can just see all the medical and health problems skyrocket.
That scared the shit out of me. Hello, sir. You're on with the machine. How you doing?
Greetings. How are you, sir?
Oh, we're good. We didn't tell anybody who was coming on, so if you'd like to introduce yourself.
No, actually, I would like a small choir full of singing cheerleaders to do that for me. But since that's not going to happen, I don't have my entrance music. My God, I thought that would be wrestling. Well, this is Tino Struckman, as some of you are now cringing by hearing my voice. And I'm even worse. I'm calling from California. So now you should see what kind of pickle I'm in. And
I swear we don't make fun of anything in California.
You don't? Well, then, God knows, then I will.
But yeah, just I mean, we've known each other for what, a couple of years now.
You know, I lose track because, you know, every time I turn on the news, I lose some brain cells, and apparently that affects my perception of time.
I'm clenching my chest right now. He forgot. It hurt my feelings. but yeah, no, we've known each other for a few years now, and our actual our friendship basically started. I had actually contacted him on doing research about my grandfather, and we just kind of hit it off. But yeah, just tell them what you do. Tell them about your channel.
Well, I'm running a channel called Lost Battlefields, and I'm a military historian, and I get to travel around the world and film historical locations, bunkers, forts, castles. I do quite a bit of research into what the SS was actually doing, raising some questions into what the CIA was actually doing, or the precursor to the CIA. And I also spent some time in Ukraine until a couple of weeks ago, trying to figure out exactly what the war was going on over there, what that battle was. And I've been on TV for a decade doing nothing of interest. But I just spend enough time in the military that I'm a patriotic American. Enough to annoy my agent, anyway.
Well,
and I think that
it's a California agent, so yeah, you're going to annoy him.
Well, you know, they're very surprised when I said I don't actually talk politics in public, because I've, at least not when it comes within the sphere of military history or writing books on military history. I sort of stop somewhere after the Second World War before we get to Korea and Vietnam. Although now I'm starting to do stuff on the Ukraine war because I was so frustrated to see how the media has mismanaged this, and the misreporting and the complete misconceptions of what's going on, fueled with whatever personal interests or self-interest various groups and entities have in that war. If it was somebody with a little bit of a level, somebody with level head have to go out there and actually spend some time with the Ukrainians and see what's going on, and see the battlefields, and see how this what this is. The much frustrating thing. So that's so I okay. So we went into the modern day, a little bit of politics, because it's hard to talk about some of the causes of this without talking about politics. And like I said about I really do like the Ukrainians and my friends in Poland, and because there's people who are actually love their country enough to be interested in actually protecting its sovereignty and its borders. I mean, that's a novel thought you haven't heard for a while.
Absolutely. Well, and I'll tell you what, I got a few of my listeners in here right now. I got a chat room going off on the side, just like like our YouTube talks, and they love your channel. I've turned them on to it. Told them, said, you guys need to go check this out. This is the kind of thing that I enjoy. And well, you're right though. We're one and the same when it came to that. I mean, even though this show is politically oriented, it's still historically oriented, and my area of, not expertise, nobody's an expert, but my area of interest is World War I and World War II, and for that exact same reason that you have, is like when you get into Korea and Vietnam and, and Desert Storm, and all that stuff, that's all political.
Yeah. And the problem we have with history now is the presentation of history have been politicized, and you can't actually talk honestly about history. So now you have to talk politics in order to defend why real history is important, because you have a vast vanguard of bright-eyed young people with purple hair and nose rings who have no idea what came before, who has no understanding or love for this country because that's what their Marxist teachers have told them. And you have to go into the Cold War and the Russian infiltration of the education system, which has now led us to a group of leaders in the Western world who are probably the most incompetent and ignorant of history you ever had.
You're right.
Ever.
You're absolutely right about that.
So to defend history, you have to grab politics by the balls and say, no, you have to stop this nonsense and call things for what they are, which obviously is offensive to so many, but...
It really is. Yeah, it really is. And what happens when we start talking about it is that people they almost get this block. Me and Matt had talked about this. Matt, do you remember when I mentioned about like YouTube videos and stuff like that? About anything that's 5 to 15 minutes long, because that's the attention span of most Americans.
Well, that's because TikTok has ruined people.
I mean, and before that, Facebook have ruined people, and before that, reality TV have ruined people, and before that, political correctness have done it.
Exactly.
Now we're now down. I think actually, from having studied psychology, the average span of attention for most people listening to a speech is 3 sentences. So you will hear politicians, except for Kamala Harris, who can't talk at all, and Biden, who doesn't know what he's saying. Normal politicians. Exactly. They have been trained to only give their point in 3 sentences, because if you go past 3 sentences, most people won't remember how the sentence began, and they'll lose the point. And that's sad.
And that's what I was meaning about TikTok. TikTok has ruined people's attention spans. It's down to like 3 seconds, and that's it.
Right, but like he said though, before that, all these social medias and stuff like that, people's attention spans can be measured in nanoseconds, and they do not want to listen to anything that might challenge what their understanding is. Go ahead.
No, so we're also dealing with a vulnerability. We have made a generation so vulnerable mentally and so unsure of how they are that you have to advertise now mental help and therapists for everybody. Everybody needs their own therapist. I mean, we used to have parents and friends, and if that failed, you had alcohol. While the people on the other side of the fence, like the Chinese, the Russians, the Middle Easterns, are looking at this incredible, fragile generation while they're teaching their kids to fix things, to shoot guns, to fire RPGs, to march in lockstep, and to actually self-sustain if they have to. Which is terrifying to see that we have become such a weak and fragile group of people out there.
Right.
Making your point, it all came from the same place. I mean, we can start blaming reality television. Once people started looking, it's more interesting to see who married who and who's sleeping with who than it actually is to think about how you balance your budget or run your personal economy or learn about your country.
Precisely, and that's we've like I said, we've talked about this quite a bit, especially with like with history and stuff like that, we really do try to ram that home, that history does have a tendency to repeat itself. And one of the big things that I've done, because you do how you do your research is some. I don't do it exactly the same way because I lost a lot of my research in that tornado, so I don't even remember who I get a hold of anymore for some of this stuff. But you do it, the proper way. I consider it the proper way. We're getting a hold of archives. We're getting a hold of other countries. We're talking to people that actually live there, and that's how we understand history. And getting people to understand history as we do is, well, impossible. It is impossible. You have a better, never mind. I'm not going to say that.
I mean, I will say, well, if I can't figure something out, I'll call the psychic downstairs and ask her to look in a crystal ball. But because research is becoming harder and harder to find. But it's okay, because now we're going to have to start talking about UFOs again. So everything is a distraction from reality. Where reality, and the sad thing is, when we talk about who is going to fix this, who is going to be the politician who is going to stand up and say, well, we are going to need to cut spending, we're going to start having to work harder, we're going to have to pull ourselves together and fix our country and revamp this and this and this and this. No one's going to do that. Everyone's going to run on giving you more free shit, and we'll all be fine, and I'll take care of you. And eventually the bubble is going to burst, and you're going to have a bunch of young kids sitting on the streets who can't figure out how to open a can of food because they're not smart enough to operate a handheld can opener.
Yeah, instead of an electric
That's
one.
what we're going to be. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, technology is the scourge. I'm telling you, it is. Even, this is the best way to put it. This is what we are around here.
You fucking hold duck, po duck, well then there, motherfucker!
We're a bunch of rednecks. And, and the way we see things is, it's becoming a lost art, working with your hands. And I brought up that when I was talking about technology, about electric cars and stuff like that, is I can walk outside right now with that V8 engine in that truck and tell you how it works, how to repair it. You get me in front of one of these new vehicles and I'm going to look like, I'm going to just go out of my mind because it's all electrical crap. But
and it's not sustainable. Exactly. So it's built on which is the terrifying thing is if you look at the policies that the average Western politician in the EU and America have now put forth, which for some reason people have voted for because they can't seem to see through the smoke, is one of the most self-destructive policy choices that you have ever seen. If these people get their way, billions of people will die or starve or freeze or overheat, or they'll certainly run out of food. Just based on cutting down the nitrates for the farmers, exactly. for food production. This was research that even Speer, he did in 1944 during the Second World War, when it was talked about let's divert all chemical production of nitrates and so on to weapons and munitions. He said, no, if we do this in 44, people will starve in 46 and 47.
Exactly.
Which is exactly what happened. And we're doing the same thing now. We have idiots like Bill Gates or Kerry or these Muppets. They're
John
talking
Kerry,
about it's like we have to stop to get to net zero. We need to stop having. There's too many people. We need to stop making food. We can't make food for them. Something has to give. Something has to give. That means billions of people are going to die. I mean, granted, maybe some people, some countries or people are having too many children. Granted. However, starving them to death, I don't really think that's the humanitarian way to go. But it doesn't look like these people are running politics that are based on humanity. It almost looks like the AI has taken over and made the calculation that, well, if I kill off half the people on this planet, by the calculation, there'll be less of this or more of that.
Precisely.
It looks like an inhuman agenda. And I don't understand why people can't see through this. But maybe if they'd stop gluing themselves to roads in Germany.
Well, and I got those idiots, yeah. I got there's one comment here in my chat section here. Angie said, excuse me, sir, I'm a hillbilly. And I said, well, Angie, do you know the difference between a redneck and a hillbilly? Rednecks wear shoes. That's the only difference.
That was good. If he hadn't asked, I would have.
Right, but well, Well, and going back to what you said, like you said, you just came back from Ukraine. That was one of the biggest, talking about the Second World War. It was prior to the Second World War, but it's exactly the pattern that Spear was mentioning. Was what did Stalin do to the Ukrainians?
Yes, he starved a third of them to death by extension of the communist policies.
7.5 million.
7.5?
7.5 million in total is the number that I've come up with so far.
I think that's a very low number from the numbers I seem to have heard. We talked a little about it when I was in Ukraine with the historians out there. I think the number is far, far higher than that. The problem is that there was no Western press interest in going to the Ukraine and find out. So there's no real entire villages would disappear. They would just starve to death, and if there's anyone alive, they'd go into the cities where no food was produced, and that further compounded the problem. And the communists kept taking, they wanted everything for the farmers. They take the seed grain. You take the seed grain, then there's no food next year. And it was a willful destruction of life and villages and whole communities that just disappeared. So there's really no real true accounting, and I'm not exactly prone to believe any of Stalin's numbers, but he was so upset when he was told that all these people was dying that he labeled them as traitors because they were dying of starvation, and he thought they were doing it deliberately to sabotage the communist plan of his.
The communist doctrine, yeah. And that's
exactly.
Well, and remember, I honestly don't recall, you're going to hate me for this, but I don't recall the name of the movie. But do you remember they actually did a movie about the Holodomor, the starvation of the Ukrainians, and what was one of the and this stuff actually happened. This gentleman was trying to get this out to the Western world to let people know that this is what was happening to these people, and he had stopped into a hut because he was being pursued by the the Stasi. That he asked, where's your parents? And they said, parents dead. And they were like, well, where did you find this meat? And they said their brother's name. And he goes, well, where's your brother? And he realized he was eating the brother.
Yeah.
This actually happened. It was.
And what we can really learn from this, or what we really should take note of, is a little bit like the National Socialists. You had the indoctrination of the youth organizations of the Hitler Youth, which became some of the most ardent believers because you take 10 years of their lives and indoctrinate them. The Russians did the same thing, and there was a lot of what the Nazis did when it came to the youth movements and to indoctrination in their belief system that they had taken from Stalin's communists, because they borrowed a good deal from each other. Where you had what was actually the ones who were killing the parents and the grandparents was the young generation that came back from the communist indoctrination schools. They were the ones in the guard towers where their parents and grandparents were picking up small seeds of grain, calling them in or killing them if they thought they were hoarding or they were stealing from the cause. So we have these completely same thing. You see the child soldiers in Africa. You have the 15-year-old kid with an AK-47 that's the most scary thing in the world because he has no understanding of life. And you see the same thing as what you get out of the colleges and schools in America today. You have this full-blown indoctrination into this Marxist system of these young kids who do not understand the truth of what really happened, what's really going on. Their belief system is completely flawed because of what they've been told. They've been indoctrinated in something that's not true. That's why they can't have a conversation about it, because they don't. Well, let's face it, Marxism and communism and the way they want to run the world doesn't actually hold up.
No.
That's why they just want to destroy any memory of anything historic, because faced with it, it doesn't hold up. It just can't. So they don't want to have the conversation.
Right, and that's something I was going to bring up to you. I got another side project that I want to talk to you about. But Matt's got a child that's still in school, and he knows quite a bit about this. Matt, you want to tell him about some of the stuff that we've dealt with your son and his school?
Which part?
Oh, go for it. The indoctrination and the especially our favorite Patsy. What was it? Which teacher was that?
he was a substitute.
Yeah, go ahead.
I don't
but
think
go
he's a substitute anymore. But he was teaching about like he would bring up certain subjects that weren't even correct, and my boy would correct him on it, and he would tell him he was wrong, and Gavin would pull out his little pocket constitution, and be like, "Well, it says right here."
Yeah, we've taught Matt's son quite a bit, and especially with history. Like, we're going to be doing something. Matt does the Boy Scouts and the Cub Scouts, and we've actually talked about me, and I even brought up you maybe as a like a video conference or something like that, to talk to these kids about true history, because that's what we want to teach them. We don't want to teach them this sugar-coated one-page bullshit that they keep doing, in our local schools. We want to teach them what real history is. And
I thought they ruined the Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts and everything else. Is that still actually allowed?
What do you mean by ruined?
Yeah.
I thought they introduced all the various 87 genders into Boy Scouts, so they're not Boy Scouts anymore. They're just Scouts and Girl Scouts. The same.
Well, here's the thing. It's literally called BSA Scouts, which still stands for Boy Scouts of America. But yeah, they do allow whatever you identify as.
See, I thought you were going to say it stands for bullshit asshole, but
No, it doesn't make any sense because it's still called Boy Scouts.
And can't we just at least just call it Scouts of America? But
yeah,
but it's true. I mean, the way that there and you see every time there's a conversation about with the transgender, what you have about the almost 50% of the ones who have in teenage years, early years have had transition and surgery, that they are prone to suicides. That's not exactly healthy. That's probably something that should be explained very severely to these kids before they make this decision.
Well, that's because at that age, if they do start the transition and whatever, what they realize is when their brains mature and they realize, hey, I don't want to be like this anymore, they can't reverse it. And that's why suicide happens.
And I think we need to hold a whole lot of psychiatrists and pharmaceutical companies and doctors very responsible for this, because a proper therapist will help you be okay with who you are until the very last resort. I mean, I have a degree in psychology. That was what we were to help people be the best person they can be. And if that's not good enough, then you can start looking for an alternative way down the line. But that's not even seem to be an option for these people.
Right. Exactly. When did we make it okay for mental illness to be run rampant like this? When did we say one day, hey, it's okay if you identify as a fucking toaster?
Have you seen the Congress?
Yeah, I know.
I mean,
we talked about that just earlier.
Most politicians probably made it okay to be mentally incompetent, or I think it came from government. You lead by example.
Right, and that's exactly what we talked about this, especially with him with the Boy Scouts, and me with what I do. We talked about this in depth, that it is now shameful to be like me, to be me, Matt. We've talked about this, where we're learning how to work with your hands, learning how to like learning horticulture, being able to do a garden by yourself. Learning stuff like that, working with your hands is now shunned. You shouldn't be doing that. You should be beholden to the state. And these kids, no kids want to learn this anymore. And when Matt asked me not long ago, hey, do you want to teach the kids welding? I was about ready to fucking come out of my clothes. I'm like, they want to learn what?
That's one of the popular ones that they want to learn about. Well, going off of being shameful, it's also shameful to learn what it is to be a man. Well.
Yeah, I know. At some point in time, every one of my books always start with a code of chivalry. I don't know why. Well, the book I wrote books for women on how to stay safe, and I always quote the code of chivalry until I had an argument with someone. Said, "Well, that's racist."
Yeah.
Okay.
Everything's racist.
So it's hard work. I mean, I think that the concept of always being able to tear somebody else down, it worked for the longest time, especially with the weak-willed Republicans we have, is that you're a racist, you're a Nazi, you're a homophobe. You can just accuse them, and that ends the argument. The thing is, they have now done it to everybody. When they were talking about Larry Elder, he's a racist. Like, okay, enough. Oh,
Yeah.
or he's a white supremacist. It's like, okay, you got to stop this. No one is.
Oof,
no
he's
one
darker than I am.
I know. I mean, it's like you got to stop this. This has to stop. And I think it all started with enough people need to actually make a stand and start calling them out for the insanity.
And
we all know.
Well, and that's what we're here for. I mean, like I said, I love, I almost want to, when I start doing my history stuff again, I almost want to start another channel to have it separate from here, because that's what this is about. We live in the gray area. We do not give a shit about party affiliation. That's not one of our things. What we want is what's right. And that's one of the things that annoys us the most is we will, I don't know how many times I've been called racist or Nazi. My favorite one was Vanilla ISIS. That was my favorite one.
That's a good one.
Is that a thing?
Yeah, I loved it. I was like Vanilla ISIS, dude. I'm putting that shit on a T-shirt and wearing it.
I'm not sure I know what that means, actually, but
I know white ISIS. But I said that. I mean, I had one guy. I walked into a store and he pointed at my head. He's like, "You look like one of them white supremacists. Like, it's male pattern baldness. You fucking idiot." I'm bald. And I had one of them not long ago. First person that ever actually noticed what the tattoo on my arm was. It's the Edelweiss. My family's from Bavaria. And he's
you're definitely not to then.
Oh yeah, and he's like, so you're a Nazi? And I stared at him dead in the face with a straight face and said, no, but my grandfather was. Now what? And he just looked at me. He's like, what? Are you serious? I'm like, yes. He was a card-carrying fucking Nazi. Do I look like the whites? I asked him. I said, do I look like the master race? Do I look like I have blonde hair and blue eyes? I said, motherfucker, I'm 5'6" tall. I have a year-round tan. I have black hair and brown eyes.
I mean, Goebbels did pretty good, and he was a bit of a short dude. So I mean, don't sell yourself short there, brother. you can still make the cut.
And you're only that tall with the platforms on.
Fuck you. Hey, Matt.
Your butt is useful as a cock-flavored lollipop.
Oh yeah,
it's interesting. I had a. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead.
I had a young man who wrote me from Germany some time ago, and it was very interesting what he wrote, because he wrote me, my grandfather was in the German army. Do I need to be denazified?
What the fuck?
Like, what? And he was serious. He was absolutely serious. Like, is this something that needs to go? Is this a generation thing? Is this a family thing? Is this something that we need to do? And because he didn't quite, he actually, and he was a very young kid. I could see from the way he wrote that he was a young kid. And it's like, what is a Nazi? Precisely. And I wrote with him, and I feel really sorry for this kid, because, like, of course, your father's sin is not yours, although that is seemed to how we would portray it now, because now we're being told we have to pay for the sins of people we're not even related to 100 years ago.
Yeah.
But just the fact that he thinks that. I mean, Germany is such a demasculated country that they can't even make the decisions if they should send. Germany is terrified to be the first country to send anything new to Ukraine, because it's got to do with weapons. They manufacture a lot of them, but they're so pacifist in their mindset.
Well, we call them pacifists.
Yeah, that too. And it made me think, well, what is a Nazi? Because I don't think people that keep throwing the terms around, I don't think they actually know. I don't think they know that if you want to look at it, there's 2% of the German population were a member of the Nazi Party. You can theoretically say those are the only ones who were actual Nazis. Not that Nazi was actually a term that was used in Germany. That's invented somewhere else after the war. Right. But those are the only two that actually were. And the Nazis of then have very little in common with the if you could find a white supremacist anywhere in this country, You can probably find 4 of them somewhere. It's not like there's an inundated threat of these people, but if you could, they would have very little in common with the actual Nazi Party member of the 30s and 40s.
Right.
So, can you find, national white supremacists? Where?
Right.
I mean, 99.9% of the violence comes from the left. It's extremely well documented. They know who they are, and they know that when they make these accusations, and that's the scary thing that I think we all have to be aware of, that when they keep making this threat, when the FBI, the Justice, all these idiots come out and talk about the threat of white supremacists, it's not that there is one, but they keep alienating white people from every part of society, that at some point in time somebody's going to have enough, and he's going to grab some sort of a firearm, and he's going to go after some of these people, and then they can point to him and say, see, that is where your white supremacist comes from. Let's take all their guns. And now you're a criminal just because you exist.
Right.
And I think that's where it's going.
Right, and that's exactly what I've said over and over and again about myself, about my people, about the Patriots. It's like you can only be pushed for so long and then wonder why people react. And that's exactly what the Democrats do, especially fucking Hakeem Jeffries. I call him hair propaganda minister. Because he literally every single day, every one of his posts, the Democrats are doing this, the extremists, right-wing extremists are doing this. I'm like, so I'm a right-wing extremist because I believe in the Constitution and I believe that we are one of the best nations on earth. That's stupid. But we've went in depth into on that, and I mean, going back to that kid you were talking about. See, I wasn't necessarily that kid. I was how do I get past the fact that one of the cocksuckers in my family happens to be a real life card carrying Nazi? How do I get past that? How can I be, proud of where my family come from? And it came from one of my friends who's a 3rd generation Holocaust survivor named Eldad Beck. He's a journalist, a Jewish journalist that still lives in Berlin. And I asked him one day, I was like, I found this out about my great grandfather. How can I be proud of where I come from if that's where we came from? And he responded to me and said, he goes, are you him? I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, do you think like him? Do you believe what he believed? I said, absolutely not. And he goes, then you're fine. He's like, you're talking to a Jewish man right now. He goes, I'm telling you, you're one of the best men I've ever talked to. You're not him. So let it go. And from go ahead.
I was going to say, I think the moment the Israelis hired Otto Skutsena on their payroll, I think we went the long step of the way of forgiveness.
I almost forgot about that.
I'm just saying, all those Nazi scientists who got hired by the Israelis after the war, I think that means forgiveness. I don't know. It may just be my perception of things, but then again, I barely feel guilt for any things I have done. Past generations, at least he wasn't a communist. It's just interesting that we are going to have to line that ancient old battle up again in what we're now going to be looking at. And what I don't understand is, how did anybody in every country who is a patriotic, whatever they are, Polish, German, Ukrainian, American, British, whatever you are, if you're patriotic, you love your country, you are now ipso facto a Nazi. And I don't understand why that's okay, because when I grew up, it was a bad thing to be a communist. It was a horrible thing to be a Marxist. These people were shunned from society. Now people in educational institutions have busts of Marx sitting up there and teaching this garbage to our kids. How is that okay? Why is that all of a sudden fine? But I guess post-war the Nazis had worse publicists than the communists, I guess.
Well, I'll tell you what, I even had one of our, considered a patriot, actually get mad because I told him people let their own blind hatred for our own government, it ruins their mind. They think a certain way because they hate our government. They don't understand, how history has worked. I had one of them literally tell me that the Russians were not communist. I'm like,
well, today they're not, but
no, they're a capitalist economy with a communist
autocracy kind of thing.
Exactly, but back then we were talking about back then, about back in the the 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s. It's like, so you didn't know? He's like, what? I was like, have you ever heard of Vladimir Lenin? Do you know what happened in 1922? He's like, no. I was like, that's when communism was born. He was a big fan. I was like, Lenin was a big fan of, a particular book and a particular guy named Karl Marx. He's like, yeah, I said that's what he based his entire government on, and it's killed millions of people.
Yeah, I mean, it's all, yeah. But I mean, and it's really interesting because, I mean, I think, and that's just me, that if I was put in charge of this nation for 6 months, we wouldn't recognize it, and we'd all be in a lot more trouble. However, I would probably establish an anti-American committee, or an un-American activity committee. And then I would start holding up what public figures have done against what is detrimental to the American people, Americans' interest, and the Constitution. And then we would see what will go after there. I think we should probably start digging up McCarthy again. Because we have gone so far in allowing this that we are losing our nation.
Well, one of the listeners here, I'm trying to keep up with the chat while we're talking. He said something that I would say would be capitalist communism, but he said capitalist socialism, the same thing as a progressive communist. I agree with what he said, because I do believe that's what Russia has came to be now. But just like in Russia, same thing in China. They figured out that capitalist economy works. They don't want to change their government, but they want to change their the economy system, because they figured out that we know how to fucking make money.
And you need money to take over the world. But plus, they want money because it's self-interest again.
Right.
Not that the top leadership of the communist parties, whether it be North Korea or China or the ancient Soviet Union, there was that 1%, 2%, 3%, just like today, that were incredibly powerful, incredibly rich, and look at Beria, untouchable for whatever crimes they committed and atrocities to the people they had around them. And that's what you're going to, but that's what we're looking at today now, isn't it? I mean, we're looking at a party that is, well, I think yesterday I cracked a joke about how Putin had put in prison his primary political opponent.
Yeah, well, the one he didn't kill.
What are we doing in this country?
Exactly. Mm-hmm. It's the same thing.
If Hillary can't run around killing them all, then the rest will put them in jail. We are now a banana republic. We are run by this small minority of rich people who absolutely do not give a damn about us.
You're not lying about that, Matt. You had something to say. I saw you kind of looking at me.
No, I didn't.
Okay, we broke Matt.
No, the wealthy have been ruling this country for quite some time. It's just they're more out in the open now.
Yeah, and also there seems to be fewer of them in some way. It's not like I think we're as close in the West to a feudal system as we've been in several hundred years. Because it seems we have less and less say in anything, and we also, and that's what I'm dreading about next year's election, is we can line up all the candidates we want, and we can have all the right arguments, as long as the media apparatchik is against us, which they are, as long as nobody brings out, as long as no one has fixed the election system, then what good is it? It's like was it Lenin who said it? Or Lenin or Stalin? I hate to quote either one of those two gentlemen wrong. I mean, some professor will be upset if I get but one of them said it doesn't matter who votes or how many votes. It's about who counts the votes.
Right.
And I don't give a rat's ass what you say. You cannot say that the last election was fair or honest. You cannot send out 100 million ballots and say this was a secure election. It is just impossible. So what are we doing what are we doing next year? What have we implemented to safeguard this Because once you have a country who no longer trusts the government, or half of the people no longer trust the government, no longer trust the media, and no longer trust fair and honest elections, then you are not far from anarchy.
Right.
So I think the Democrats, they may have to throw one and actually let it be honest. I know they're not going to. But
no, they want that power too much. But I mean, it's where have we seen this? Again, referencing what we do is with history. Where have we seen this multiple times before? I mean, we can name probably over 20 countries where this has happened, where they where it started out as an election cycle, and then we're like, no, well, I really don't. I like this power that I got. So I'm going to jail or kill everybody around me to keep that power. And we've seen that time and time again. And all of that, just coincides with what's going on today. We're not necessarily, well, we're not the Clintons, but they haven't killed anybody yet, but the Biden, that I know of. But they will do anything to stay in power, and that's what we see.
And apparently there's not enough of an outcry on behalf of the country's population. And we see the same thing in Europe, because in Europe they're actually further gone into this globalist society that they want, with less and less say for people, far more rules and regulations, everything's far more expensive, and they have practically no say, because the EU will keep passing all these insane laws and bills, and Lord knows they are on their own whole different planet of kickbacks to give permits. It's all about buying permissions to build and do and manufacture. The EU is no longer about free trade and open borders and what it might have been 30, 40 years ago or 75 years ago when Himmler thought it up. The EU is a whole different animal now. They're further into that than we are, where you see a little bit of kickback with the Dutch farmers, where, here's a small country who's producing an enormous amount of food for the world and for Europe, and they don't want to be driven out of business, and the Dutch didn't want to starve to death. A shocking concept. But why are we not seeing the same outcry here? I mean, everyone is so subdued by the media or by the idea, the next election will fix it. Oh, we'll have another cup of coffee. There's nothing I can do. And sooner, all of a sudden, they're going to wake up one day, the AI is running your schools. You'll have no cash to pay for your gardener, give him a little money to do things. You have no more freedom. They can shut off the system. If you lose, and that's one of the things that we really need to pay attention to, is the war on cash. If cash goes digital, then we look at what happened in Canada. Then there's all of a sudden the government can turn off your bank account. Is that what anybody wants? It seems like all this is happening, and every morning you wake up, there has been a new session, and they implemented some new law you have no say over.
Right, exactly.
And we have to start taking to the streets and actually demonstrating and staying with it, because only by that way, legal and illegal, lawful and local, but you have to actually start doing this.
Right, and that's that's exactly what digital currency is a control over the entire system. They want to know exactly where you're spending your money and how. No longer they want to get rid of cash, period. And they said, well, I love the comments that they make about that. We're trying to get rid of the cash because of the germs. I've heard that one. Like, no, we're trying to get rid of the cash because we can't trace it. That's what we're trying to do. And even explaining, having this conversation with some friends over there in Europe, they even agreed with me when I said the only reason why the euro is worth more than the dollar is not because we're printing money. It's because you have so many countries in that using the euro. That's what they want. They want this basically like a single payer system throughout the world, where everybody's money is the same. It's
and then we are truly fucked, and not in the fun way. And I don't understand why they don't understand the dangers that imposes. I don't know what it's going to take to wake people up.
Somebody said it
at this point.
Somebody actually said it in chat. I just turned over to look at the chat room. Christina says you will own nothing and you will be happy.
Be happy.
They will be happy.
Klaus Schwab. Yeah, Klaus Schwab. The WEF.
I know. It's like these. Who the hell is taking these people serious? How did the son of an old Nazi scientist end up sitting in a mountain in Switzerland with a bust of Lenin and a cat that he's stroking with his small Walter PPK as he decides that the whole world needs to starve to death? I mean, and people are listening to him. Why?
Yeah, especially Canada. That little cocksucker's taking everything to heart.
Why did I see a tweet? Not that I believe in any of this nonsense media, but I woke up and I saw a thing on my phone that says, the Canadian police is about to arrest Trudeau. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not buying that, but where the hell did that come from?
Yeah,
None of you heard that?
No, I actually renamed him. It's no longer Justin Trudeau. It's Justanek Trudeauovich.
Oh, yeah, he's a good apparatchik. But why is anybody actually investigating that Muppet, or what's going on there?
I don't know. I wondered that myself. I mean, I've got a lot of my followers actually on the that damn app TikTok are actually from Canada, and I talk to them about it all the time. That was our claim to friendship, was talking about Trudeau. And it's all started not with the trucker convoy, but with the fact that he was standing in Parliament saying that, this group of people, and he pointed at this group of people and said they side with people that wave swastikas and stuff like that, and one of them is a Holocaust survivor.
Yeah, all those evil Nazi Jews, I know.
Yeah,
I remember.
she's like standing there going, "What the fuck did you just say?"
I think when it comes to Trudeau, the better part was when there was a live session of Parliament, and somebody called out, the Schwab had just said that half of the Canadian government is on his payroll, and he would actually, and it was very clear when he said it. Of course, this was all a massive Zoom call, and said, well, I would like everybody to go on record as to who this half are. I would like to see hands here. Who's the ones who's on the payroll of Klaus Schwab? And the speaker said, "Oh, you broke up there. Couldn't hear you. Sorry, I have to cut you off."
Yep.
And it was perfectly clear what he said. But I think that's an interesting follow-up question. Because, well, just saying, same question could be here. I think we should take a look at everybody who took money from Soros and see what unconstitutional stuff they're doing.
Or was it the Bilderbergs? Freaking who else? We got BlackRock. All this.
State Street and Vanguard.
Yep, Vanguard was the other one I was trying to think of, because they're all in cahoots with each other. I mean, they all want the power, so they're all technically fighting each other. But at the same time, my enemy and my enemy is my friend. They are banding together to fuck us all, and that's exactly what's going on.
Yes, BlackRock, State Street, and Vanguard, they're all pushing ERC over profit for the investors. And some states are starting to push back against this with putting laws in place that you can't actually invest in a company that's not seeking to maximize your investment. Well, duh. And it is scary because a lot of your listeners right now have money, they have their pension savings with one of these three companies that are actually seeking this woke overtures and demands. You will now see CEOs of top 500 companies. They will be getting their bonuses, not based on how well the company has performed or based on how much profit the company has made, but based on their social, environmental, racial progress in the company. Have they hired enough transgenders? Have they done enough for the environment? Have they shut off the air conditioners? Those things that haven't made the company money, that's what's based, their bonus, the CEO's economic bonus is based on. So now you're looking at, it doesn't matter if they make profit. It means investors are getting screwed. The people who have their money tied up is getting screwed. But, we have the ERC covered. That has to go.
And speaking of listeners, Mr. Per Hagelin just popped into the room.
Well, welcome to the room.
Yeah. Per just popped in. So did Jeff Starch, Matt Mardell. You should know those names. They're all from your channel.
Oh.
We've been sniping them and bringing them over.
We all seem to be on the same page.
Absolutely. Well, and that's something that I brought up a long time ago when we all started talking about this. I was like, I pointed to the chat room and I said, listen, I was like, I got people from France, Germany, Sweden. They're all here. And they all agree with what we are saying. I was like, that should tell you something, that we're not on the wrong page here. that we are correct in what we're saying about how the world system is playing out. And I'll let Per know. Per, we actually have Mr. Tino Struckman on the line with us, just to let you guys know, since you just popped in. But that was something that I wanted to portray as much as possible. Is the mainstream media, and especially our government, especially the progressives, don't want you to know that people around the world agree 100% with what you're saying, that they don't want this either. Look at what's going on in France. They don't want this shit.
No, it's actually very interesting when you mention that, because it's all about information control. And again, we have now an internet we can turn off. They want this. And again, it's a little bit like waging a war. It's about command and control. And if they can delete all our thought or our conversations, or they can classify everything as hate speech, they can make it harder and harder for us to communicate online, or not us, but the conservatives in general, which means that we'll never find out. We'll believe we're sitting around and being alone. Because if they keep cutting us off, then we can't communicate. We can't actually build. We saw during the riots where I was called up with the guards. You saw how they communicated all the way through. They communicated with cell phones, through Instagram, through Twitter. They all communicated and coordinated their efforts to destroy American cities. That was allowed. But the moment you have a conservative on Twitter or anything like it, that is not allowed. That is being banned, disbarred, closed, hate, whatever you have. So I guess maybe we'll need another internet. But I'll tell you, I live in Los Angeles, and I will say, I have never met anybody that doesn't feel the same way that we do. And I hear people I have friends of mine that keep being. I always wear American flag T-shirts. No one ever said a word to me. And I have friends who get picked on for putting up the American flag or getting called things here and there. Yet I have never, even in the film industry, I practically never meet any of these blue-haired liberals that we all ever make fun of and think they're everywhere. I only know people here in L.A. who think the same we do, which you would think,
Well, I brought that up when I went to when I was in Fresno. Granted, that's way the hell away from you, so there was no way we were going to be able to meet up. When I was in Fresno, when I was driving around, I mean, we went to what the hell is that city? I went to the Winchester Mansion. I had no choice but to go see it because I wanted to see it so badly that I would drive, half across the country to go see it.
No, I'm with you.
But we went to go see it, and I kept looking around, and all these farms, there's farms everywhere up there near Fresno. And the one thing that I noticed was all these signs that were basically saying, "Go fuck yourself, Newsom," without actually spelling those words out. I mean, I'm like, holy cow. I can't believe what I'm seeing.
We had massive pro-Trump demonstrations all over L.A. Before and after the elections. People up but if you go in the middle, you have Sacramento, you have San Francisco, what's left of it, and L.A. to some degree are generally run by blue all the way through. But everything in between, California is extremely red in the middle. It just seems that, and I keep thinking again the same thing. I never met a German who ever said they voted for Merkel. I've never met a person who voted for Newsom. Yet we're always stuck with these people. And now we could see last election how easy it might be to actually manipulate with these things, how easy it actually is to... how are we to know that all elections have always been fair? Maybe we know that these people have been beating on their elections for forever. But we've never really done anything to secure elections in the Western world. We just assume, well, we're the civilized ones. We do things better. Do we? And what about when we find election fraud? When we had several seats that was placed at the last election that was found to be fraud. Well, these people are still sitting in their seat, so there's no consequence.
Right, and I got people in the chat room just going nuts. Matt Mardell said, "I think Tino's channel is great. He makes interesting documentaries on history. It's a pleasure to learn from him. Thank him for his hard work."
Well, thank you.
Christina says, "Did Gruesome Newsom just ban gas lawnmowers?"
I have no idea. After I turned on the radio and they said something about Trump was going to be indicted again, I'm like, I'm just going to start playing music from the 80s because otherwise I'm going to lose my mind. I had enough of this.
Now, you know what?
Whatever Newsom does, probably I wouldn't be surprised.
Now you know why I play death metal, because it keeps me from choking people. Jeff Starch said, didn't the Cali government cut water off from the farmers? My answer to that is yes. That was one of the big arguments, especially up there in Northern California.
Yes. For the almond farmers, that was a whole big thing. That was a whole big thing in Scandinavia that never really got unraveled to figure out how we ended up selling the water rights to something as important as the California water rights to a civilian company. And I think we still have several 100,000 homes in Los Angeles, greater Los Angeles area, that doesn't have running water, where they're actually delivering water to every day. No running water. This is in the great America, highest and most sophisticated metropolitan city in the Western world, right? Yeah. But because of global warming, we filled up all our water reservoirs because it's so hot and so terrible. Oh, that doesn't fit. That doesn't match, does it?
No. Well, and I made the comment. We were talking about Newsom and about California and stuff like that. I said, after being there, I was there back in 2005 in the Marines. And it was totally different what I saw then than what the hell I'm seeing now, especially even up there as far as Fresno, because I always thought that, like San Francisco and stuff, but maybe LA, stuff like that, the homelessness and stuff. I was appalled and it turned my stomach inside out seeing how many people that were actually homeless. And the stupidest thing that I'd ever heard from somebody from California said, well, they all come here from across the country because it's warm. I'm like, are you retarded? You think a homeless person just packed up in fucking New York and sashayed their ass all the way across the country to California to be homeless? Are you stupid?
I thought you guys were sending them all out here. I thought they were being sent by the... Didn't they send them out here before the Olympics? I don't know. I seem to...
Right. Yeah, exactly. Send
us your crazy, your poor, your huddled masses.
Yearning to vote Democrat. I wish I could remember what Newsom was talking about the other day, but he said something about I think it was about Texas, and I responded. I said, people are literally shitting in the streets in San Francisco. You don't have any, leg to stand on here.
No, they really don't. It's terrible what they've done to this state, and it's so sad because there are so many people in California who feel, and like I said, I'm here. I love it here. I live by the Reach. I ride my Harley to the gym every morning. I'm living the American dream, and I can still do it because all the crazy people that everyone keeps talking about being out here, I never see them. I never hear from them. No one ever talks to me about this, and I know they're there, but quietly, I'm building up my aggression level for that one day some idiot in a Prius is going to go like, American flag is racist, dude. So then you all know when I'm going to be arraigned. Yeah. But it doesn't happen, and I don't know if it's because I look like such a nice and pleasing non-homicidal maniac that nobody actually thinks to talk to me about these things, or they think no. Never have that problem. And as long as I don't have to hear about all this crap, I guess I'm okay here. But I don't understand why I'm not seeing it. So there's still a little bit of places here that are still normal, but it will be better. Like during the riots, when we were started talking about, it's like I live out by the marina, and there's a bunch of shooters that live out here, a bunch of real guys, and we all made a little round call when we started looking at, well, if there's going to be a riot, if the LA is going to start burning, there's no way we can fight our way, get all the stuff in the cars, and get through the freeways or get out through town. There's not that many roads out of L.A. So we started looking, well, we're in the marina. There's a bunch of boats here, so we meet here, and we pick the big one that's just got fueled. And that was the conversation. Like, well, then we can sail out.
Right.
But it's a very sad thing that you have to start thinking about. We really thought this was going to really escalate. And I thought so too, because I see us we fulfill all the criteria in America of a civil war. We have fulfilled all of them by far and for a long time. We're demoralized and we're broken up people that have been pitted against each other for a very long time. And it wouldn't take much to set it off, except for, I think, the level-headedness of conservatives. Because, and you see the military, you see the law enforcement, see intelligence are playing out all these civil war games scenarios. And from every one of them I've heard, that's what you do. You have to plan for these things. You have to plan out what might happen. Every single one of these scenarios end with a conservative victory. All of them, hands down.
Yeah.
Which is, it's good for us. But it also means it's going to be a whole lot of dead Americans if it ever comes to there.
Well, look at our state. You know, you're stuck with Newsom. I'm stuck with Governor Gravy Sweats, the king of California here. Same thing. You know, tell me if you think I'm crazy about this, but here's what I
know you're crazy.
Well, yeah, it's because that's why we're friends. Well, I don't like normal people. I don't like normal people. Normal people scare me. They have something to hide. But you know, you're stuck with Gavin Newsom. We're stuck with J.B. Pritzker. This is what I'm thinking. You know, since the left seems to hate the how the elections are run, they really don't like the Electoral College. I vote that we have an Electoral College in each state as well. Because if we did, I don't think Newsom or Pritzker would have had a rainmaker's chance in hell of being governor.
No. One thing that scares me thinking ahead is, let's face it, Trump has a way of finding a way of walking on water. So I think you're probably going to figure a way to do that again. Biden seems to, identify himself as a coconut. So there's a very real possibility, and Newsom has hired quite a bit of an election campaign staff. How does it look if slick-haired dumbass from Sacramento ends up running against Trump next year?
Right.
That's a little troubling because Newsom he's such a polished, slimy politician that he knows exactly what to say. He can charm all these housewives, and he's such a nice, balanced young man that his track record for destroying California may be looked. I mean, of course, they're going to lie about that anyway. But now you're going to have him versus Trump. That, for those of us who know Newsom, it's a hands down competition. But what about everybody else?
Well, and that's the same thing with our state. Our governor is, he actually said, he goes, I might actually run for president. He figures since he fucked this state so badly, he might as well fuck the rest of the country too. I mean, in terms of, I know California's pretty damn bad, but in terms of like overall tax burden, we're number one. In terms of debt, we're number one. And we're starting to be, we're only third in crime. And he thinks, well, I've done such a great job, I should go and do this all over the place.
I think we just gave up on bail here as well.
Well, we know. Brian said, don't forget Gavin Newsom destroyed San Francisco first. I'm like, well, of course. That was the easiest one. They're the most liberal. Well, most progressive. I'm sorry, not liberal.
So here's another question to you, esteemed gentlemen. Since I wrote a book on women's safety, and I wrote about stalking, and I spent a very sad part of my life trying to figure out how to help women with these issues. How, in the name of Bonaparte's balls, can it become a conspiracy theory that human trafficking how is that a conspiracy? It happens constantly. There's tons of witnesses. 4 million women a year are trafficked around the world. We have more slaves now than we had 150 years ago. How is that a conspiracy theory?
Exactly. We've talked. Matt's like he's giving the scrunchy face and everything. He's like, we've talked about this because we did mention that it's so bad. Well, we know, Jeremy, that children are trafficked as well, but you know, Tino's on track here with women because they're being trafficked more than children.
I mean, okay, no, it's women and children, it's young boys and young girls.
Yeah.
It's just, I could have specified all of it, but still, how is this a conspiracy? I mean, in what parallel universe of insanity is this now a conspiracy instead of actually reaching out, doing something about this?
Right. Well, and that goes right on into the border too, as well.
That absolutely goes to the border. Of course, we don't want to. Okay, that's politics again, because but still, women and children are dying.
Yes.
And no one seems to give a damn. And there's also a children's trafficking situation that's coming out of Eastern Europe. Mm-hmm. That's very real and involves quite a lot of money. And I know some things about it, given some of the job offers that's coming out, but we can't quite figure out who or what or why. But it's a very scary thing.
Right.
But this is going on.
See, I brought this up with the Eastern Europe and stuff like that about the trafficking, but it wasn't in the way that people thought. I was like,
no, it's different.
No, it's not in the mind frame that everybody seems to think that it is. It's really not, especially on who's doing it.
And you're also looking at organs, but that's a whole different story as well.
Yep.
If only somebody did a movie about that. Oh, wait, I did. Never mind.
Yeah, you did. Well, and I mean, usually we're done by now. But you know what? I'm going to give you about another, let's say about another 10 minutes.
Why?
Why not?
I have a beer in a hot tub somewhere. But, all right, fine.
Technically, I can go for 3 hours.
Well, as long as people are deranged enough that they actually want to waste their lives listening to what I have to say, I can't. Even that goes beyond even my degree in psychology. I can't explain that.
Well, Per said something that makes sense though. He says, "Do like Ukraine, lay landmines along the Mexican border. Problem solved." Like, oh, that's savage as hell, but that's true.
I think when the Ukraine war is over, we bring the Ukrainians over here to guard the border because apparently they're doing a better job than we are.
Right.
And we just called home what the guard mission to the border has just been canceled or called out, or I think they got stood down as well. So yeah, it's not like they need any help.
Hey, Jeremy. Jeremy says that didn't work for Ukraine. Actually, yes, it did.
Yeah, I was going to say it did.
They've got the second largest army in the world on a corner because of what they've done.
I mean, he's not wrong. It didn't work last year when the Russians initially came in, and I guess they're not technically on the border. But they're sort of holding where they are now. So
right.
I mean, with a little give and take, we can polish that argument to make. But certainly, I'd rather have a bunch of Ukrainians guarding the border than a bunch of Western politicians.
Jeremy?
And
Jeremy, no, you're completely wrong about the Ukrainians are not getting fucked. The man that's on talking to us right now was just actually there. they are definitely not getting fucked. They are holding their own better than anybody I could ever. I mean, I am proud of what them guys are doing right now.
That's one thing that I have. There's a couple of things that I hear from. Like, I spent some time with the National Guard out there and from some of the territorials, and the territorial defense forces are literally the ones that had 4 weeks of training and pushed the Russians out of Kiev. And one thing that bothers me a little bit is the misconception, and I will be the first one to say that when I went to Ukraine, I went because I spent quite a lot of time in the military, and I wanted to see, because so much gossip and so many opinions, someone said, well, it's not really a war, what's really going on, who's to blame, who's winning, they're losing. I wanted to see this because I have never, in all my years of studying military history, seen that much conflicting chatter about a war or a conflict. I was like, all right, so I'm going to have to go out here and see for myself. And the one thing somebody posted on my website, my Facebook, I don't forget, that there really wasn't a battle of Kiev, which is so far from reality.
It was kilometers away.
And I'm not, several miles away.
Yeah.
And the city is full of shrapnel holes. All the cities surrounded, like Bucha and Irpin, are full of destroyed buildings, bombed out, shot up cars. And I'm doing a documentary about it, and I filmed it. And I will show you. There was a real war. This was where you can go over entire neighborhoods that looks like Dresden, where you just have the holes of houses left from indiscriminate shooting fighting. Now, I don't blame the guy who says, unless he has a political motivation for saying, that's not a real war, because he's saying this because this is the information he got from some news outlet for some whatever reason.
And that's exactly what I'm trying to explain to him is we actually have, aside from the fact that I have friends that are on the front line, and I've unfortunately lost 2 of them so far, and then having you over there and stuff like that, we have inside knowledge of what's going on over there. One of the things that he mentioned was the look at how many tanks and armored vehicles have been blown up. Well, it's war. You don't think equipment's going to get exploded.
Okay, and then we started back. If you look at the lost reports from the Russians, which are very many, which is very often okay, everybody does propaganda. Everybody inflates the numbers of everything. That's fine. But if you just look at some of the numbers, you will find that the Ukrainians, according to the Russians, have lost 6 or 7 times as many tanks as they had beginning of the war. They have lost, I don't know, so many thousand planes, and I think they started the war with 40 jets or something. They have lost exponential amounts more than they ever had, than they ever received.
Right.
And a lot of the times when you see things that are destroyed, you will see different stories that will come out with, and you really have to spend way too much more time than I have looking at this. You'll see the same Bradley being destroyed and filmed from 10 different angles.
Exactly.
And all of a sudden, there's 10 Bradleys that are being destroyed.
Well,
the Ukrainians have generally replenished what they've lost, and they've gotten quite a bit more APCs of various kinds than they had to begin with.
Yeah, it's like what he just said. He says the West hasn't been in military production for years. Russia has been in that frame point for decades. Actually, it's quite the opposite, Jeremy. The Russians haven't made jack shit, which is the reason why they're bringing out T-72s and T-60s and stuff like that, because they're running out of equipment. They tried to put out the new T-90 Armada, and it didn't even make it to the battlefield, and they had to take it back.
I mean, you have to, then turn around and say, well, 8 months, if it was, no, I understand Russia is a big country and they theoretically should have a crap lot of things, but they also have a lot of internal corruption that have derailed and made a lot of these systems inoperable. And you look at already 8-9 months ago, the Russians were pulling out 122s and 100s of old artillery systems. The Russians have pulled out of mothball World War II towed artillery systems. They wouldn't be doing that if they had enough of everything new. The Russians are taking significant stores of their mothballed stuff. They're running out of barrels. They had reduced what they're giving their front lines of the shells. They also have problems. While Ukraine is starting to get from everywhere. Sorry.
Right. No, and Jeff said if Russia had their shit together, they wouldn't be needing Iranian drones. He's exactly right about that. They wouldn't be using. Hey, Jeremy, we know we did in fact give them our old shit, but our old shit is technologically more advanced than what the Russians have. That's the reason why HIMARS is kicking the shit out of them on a daily basis. But
HIMARS are the one thing that I said, there's anything I could bring you when I come back. So, well, if you can't give us F-16s, give us more HIMARS.
Exactly.
HIMARS has been incredibly valuable, and they have made the Patriot systems work.
That's not true
But you also
either,
remember
Jeremy.
from the very outset of the war, some of the most important deliveries have been from Czechoslovakia and Poland, which scraped together several hundred pieces of armor because they had the same armor, the T-72s, they had the old BMPs, ones and others, that the Ukrainians knew how to fix, knew how to operate, no training required. They actually sent them stuff they needed right away, that they could implement in their battle line right away. And they sent them a lot, while a lot of Western countries have been sending quite a lot of maybe smaller packages, but they're very sophisticated. They're very good packages.
Right.
And at this time, you have started seeing more and more training of Ukrainian soldiers, and you see, well, it takes several years to train on a Leopard or an Abrams, and it does.
Yeah.
But now we're looking into this. We're looking at almost coming up on the third year of this war, where you have seen Ukrainian soldiers being capable of taking Western sophisticated systems and putting them to damn good use, because they're really motivated, which is something you can't say about the Russians. The Ukrainians are really motivated, and if we're not giving them enough to push the Russians out. We're not. Hands down, we're not. They don't have enough of that. They have enough people. They have more than enough soldiers in the hinterland. And Russia haven't done a general mobilization, but neither have Ukraine. Because, like I was there's tons of young men running around in the hinterland of Ukraine that absolutely could be called up.
Right. Yeah, there's a lot of military-age men still out there. Yeah. And I can also flip the script on what he said. He says, we have pulled our old shit out. Well, you got to look at it this way, Jeremy. Our old shit, like I said, is technologically more advanced than the Russian shit, and this little country called Ukraine is holding back, again, the second largest army on the planet. And they even had to bring in the Wagner Group. And the Wagner Group still, even with the Wagner Group and the Russians fighting side by side, they still cannot stop the Ukrainians with our old equipment. What does that tell you? He's a much better fighter.
This is a very even fight right now, oddly enough. But you're sort of looking at World War I with drones and rockets, which is not good for anybody. This is not a fight where anyone can win outright, depending on how you define victory. The Ukrainians can't kick the Russians out, and the Russians can't defeat the Ukrainians to the point where they could take over the entire country. So now we're stuck, regardless.
But remember, they didn't want it.
No one side is being mauled more than the other in this sense.
Right. Well, and figuratively speaking, we already knew how this was going to play out. The Russians at first thought, yes, they were going to be able to. I mean, for fuck's sake, they sent money to the main bank of Kyiv to pay their soldiers because they thought they were just going to walk in as liberators, and they found out that the 76-year-old grandma with a handful of sunflower seeds told you to go fuck yourself. That's exactly what happened. But remember, I said this since the beginning. I was like, most people don't even know where Ukraine is on a map until this got brought up. Now suddenly they know all about the area, which they don't know jack shit because they haven't read their maps.
All these analysts who now are experts on military armor and tanks and weapon systems, who never shot a handgun. Yep, those we hear them all the time. We hear that's one thing I gripes my when I see all these military analysts talk about how future wars will be fought with drones and remote controlled tanks, and we don't have to have boots on the ground. And you're an idiot. we have all this technology, and right now you have one group of people with rifles in hand digging trenches to fight another group of people, rifle in hand, who's digging trenches on the other side.
It always comes back to it.
Involved in World War I.
Yeah, we went back to World War I, exactly.
We're back to World War I. So, yeah, now.
Well, and I like I said, with the map, it's like most people could not point where the Ukrainian, where Ukraine is on the map. And they just suddenly know, they think they know. I urge them constantly to look at the map and go, why do the Russians want this particular area? And it's because it's mineral rich and it has the Black Sea. That's the area that they want to keep. They want to keep the Donbass region. They don't give a fuck about the rest of it. They just thought they could get it all at once and found out horribly that they're not. They're going to sit on that property and they're going to fight for every inch of it because they think that they deserve it.
Yeah, and Putin can't lose face and give up, and Zelensky can't negotiate to give up those sections. So there's I don't see where the common ground for a peace deal is to be found. I think Ukraine, and I hate to say that because I love my Ukrainian friends. I think Ukraine is going to have to. Maybe they can push the Russians out of some sections. Maybe they can get to the coast. But generally speaking, I think the territory the Russians are sitting on to a large extent now, that's where they're going to stay. And I think we may have to end. It may have to end with that for a very long time until maybe we're looking at a regime change in Moscow. And I don't think it's entirely, not that that is not something I'm advocating, but I'm just saying realistically, Putin can't give it up.
Right. Well, and yeah, there's a lot we could say about that. And correct me if I'm wrong here, but that's literally where they're at. That's where they're sitting on. They're sitting on the Donbass. They're sitting on that area. It has all to do with that Black Sea fleet. That's all they're fighting for. That's all the Russians want in the first place, and they've been doing it since 2014. And that's and most people when we talk about 2014, we actually need to get going. But when we talk about 2014, they're like, well, the Ukrainians broke the agreement. It's like, no, actually, it was the Russians that broke the agreement. The agreement is the grain exports would continue and everything else like that if the Russians pulled their equipment and their men out of that region. They did not do that. That's the reason why they got bombed. They were trying to push the Russians out. And this took long enough, but Putin promised back in the 90s that he was going to get these territories back. In fact, he even threatened half of Poland. He threatened Romania and Belarus, but Belarus is his bitch anyway.
So is that interesting guy from Chechnya. He's always threatening that we're going to invade Poland next. I'm like, okay.
Yeah. And look what they did to Georgia.
I'm curious. So this interesting character.
NATO did not break the agreement, Jeremy. The Russians did.
Well, yeah. Where he's coming from, I'm assuming, is the expansion of NATO eastwards, which was generally verbally promised we wouldn't, but it was never agreed upon that we would move eastwards. I could see why Russia is pissed off about that.
But remember when Romania and oh damn it, what was the other one? When they joined NATO, they were given their blessing by Russia to do so. The only reason why that they didn't want it has nothing to do necessarily with NATO, with Ukraine joining NATO. They wanted that region, and he said for the last 20 years that he was going to get that region whether we wanted him to or not.
I mean, yeah. Well, I mean, and honestly, when we talk about, I think talking about fault and who's to blame for this, that is something we need to deal with.
Yeah, that's a different story altogether.
After the fact. Because right now we are in the situation we're in. And I'm absolutely, we need to dissect this as historians and politicians, and maybe no one's going to be held responsible.
Jeremy?
We can forget all about that. There's never going to be anybody held responsible for why, no matter who we decide who's to blame for this.
Right.
But right now we are where we are, and we need to deal with what is.
Jeremy,
and then we can figure out.
Yeah. No. I'm agreeing. I'm reading his comment. Hey, Jeremy, how many countries border Russia? Do you know? How many of those got the blessing from Russia to be in NATO? All of them. So, no, just because I mentioned Romania. He said Romania isn't that close. There's, a lot of other countries that are on that border. But we should probably get going, man. I'm way over time here. But I would like to give you, give you the floor again. And like I said, if you want to, tell them more about the channel and have them come check it out, I'm perfectly okay with that.
I'm just curious how the head of Kadyrov, the head of the Chechen nation and military, why exactly did Jean-Claude Van Damme attend his birthday party? I'm just curious. I don't know.
I've seen that.
Like, what the hell are these? What are these guys thinking? There's another couple of actors who are like, I'm just trying to figure out how these things are. I just ask questions. It's just the things I do. I'm actually, I got to go and I'm working on a episode for Saturday about a strange fortified line of bunkers I found in Poland, and there's tons and tons of that coming up. So, and I shared the interesting news that there's 2 of the mainstream networks that are actually looking at picking up some of my shows, which is going to pay me more money so I can actually go off and film more stuff.
Yeah.
Which is, so there. And then we get to have a little summer house in Poland where we can all have beers, because they actually have pretty damn good beer in Poland, just saying.
I'm still saying we need to just go ahead and buy some of the bunkers in Norway and get it over with.
Norway?
Yeah. The Norwegian coastline still got a bunch of them.
Yeah, but do you have any idea how cold it gets up there?
This is true.
In the winter? I'm not saying that Poland is going to get any better, but okay. Norway is also insanely expensive. Poland is insanely inexpensive, which is why I'm actually thinking about buying a little summer house in Poland, because it's a nice, conservative, good food, good value for your money. It's great people. Can't understand what they're saying, but that's a bridge. I'll cross that later. Just saying. I mean, there's a lot more. I never thought I didn't think I was going to say that I would buy a house in Ukraine at this point. I didn't think I was going to say that either. But things change.
Yep. Well, and when go ahead.
Well, I was going to say there's no such thing as too cold. It's poor gear choices.
Nonsense. It's too cold.
No, there's no such thing as too cold.
You got one man that lives in California and the other guy loves the South.
I go camping in the wintertime.
I grew up in Scandinavia. I know snow, I know rain, I know cold, and that's why I'm in California. That's probably why it's hard for me to leave here, because I just fucking hate cold.
I think you just need to pack your shit up and either go to Texas or Florida.
Yeah, I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibilities that
your money goes farther.
Yeah, but they can't go much shorter than out here.
That's true. But
all right.
But I'll get back a hold of you. Like I said, I added a couple more projects to my list. One of them I think you might. Well, there's a couple. Actually, you're interested in all of them. That's what we've been talking about.
Well, you can sign me up for the welding class. I mean, if you're going to teach the kids how to weld, I'll come out for that, because I mean, every time I turn on a welding aggregate, fires, explosions, fire departments, FEMA shows up. So it's just I should probably learn this.
Well, yeah, and I mean, you should be your own mechanic. You do ride Harleys.
I mean, obviously. I mean, I'm just having my seats are both being redone.
That was a hard.
And I become such a redneck when I start turning into the Harley, because I went down to the guy he's going to reshape my seat for my chopper. I've got this long chopper. It's really cool. I'm telling you, it's just actually so long I can't actually reach the foot pegs, so I have to reshape my seat. And you come into and you'll understand this, because you probably all shiny things, right?
Yep.
Harley, shiny things. So I'm sitting there with a seat, and he's like, "Oh, so you just want the seat black leather?" I'm like, yeah. Do you want, any embroidery? And I'm like, what do you got? Oh, Saxon. Oh, how much is that? Oh, I'll do that. Okay. So do you want like dice or like scallops or something on the seat, embroidery on there? Yeah.
Sure.
Okay. So do you want metallic threads go through the legs? Yeah. I have no idea what I ordered, but it's going to look really cool.
Well, let's not fool everybody. Actually, what we're talking about, it's not cowhide. We prefer baby seals.
I mean, the cuter an animal is, the more tasty it is. Let's just face it.
Exactly.
Panda on toast is fucking awesome.
Well, for you, it should be squirrels. I mean, you got.
Oh, don't get me started on the squirrels. If I was in Tennessee now, I would be littered with dead squirrel corpses all around the patio furniture they constantly try to destroy. But apparently my neighbors here in the marina are frowning upon me using heavy artillery on the patio.
Yeah. That's okay. I'm shooting groundhogs in the face with a 22 in town, so...
And that's why close defensive shooting of squirrels in home apartments should be done with hollow points so they don't penetrate all walls and kill your neighbors.
Exactly. Well, I mean, I can understand if I brought out the steel cord Mosin.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about 308 with explosive core, but I guess we have to settle for a BB gun. But I'm protecting my patio furniture now. I'm just saying.
Right, but anyhow, we better get off here. It was definitely a pleasure having you, and everybody in here is really enjoying it. So we'll probably have you back. Much to your dismay, you might end up back here with me again.
No, you just let me know. I have no life to speak of whatsoever, as you clearly know.
Well, neither one of us do. That's why we're here.
Yep.
But definitely, that being said, we're going to sign off for the night, everybody. It's been a pleasure to reach out to every one of you. Tino, if you want to say something, go ahead.
Thank you for having me on. Be well, drink safe, and drive fast. Or something to that. I don't know.
That works for us.
Is that right?
Yep.
Okay, good.
All right. And on that note, people, we are out of here. We will see you next week.
And I'll see you 2 weeks from now.
Oh, yeah, I forgot. You're running away again.
Yeah, I'm running to Chicago.
But, well, we love y'all, and we're out of here.
See ya.
Don't need this all no more, 'cause we never even learn. We'll got just ignore till nations of fire burn. War and redemption, holy intentions, evil that man has done. Blinded by choices, guided by voices. First you try to steal it, though you know that it's wrong. Then you try to kill it when it's time to move on. You don't need this all no more, 'cause we never even learn. We'll got just ignore The